At 26 years old, the family that had abandoned me 16 years ago suddenly reappeared in my life. This unexpected reunion sparked a series of emotions and reactions that made me question my own identity, as if I was a different person entirely. As the eldest daughter, I grew up in a seemingly happy family with two siblings, one 3 years younger and the other 5 years my junior. We shared typical family experiences, cooking meals together, watching movies, and playing games. We were close-knit until my father lost his job when I was 9. Blamed for things he hadn't done, he was unfairly dismissed, leaving my mother, who was working in a school, struggling to provide for us all. They decided it would be best if I lived with my grandparents until they were back on their feet. Initially, the idea seemed reasonable, and I embraced the change. That summer, I stayed in my grandparents' farm, caring for animals and enjoying the countryside. Little did I know, this temporary separation would turn into a lifelong ordeal. When school was set to resume, my parents assured me they were working on arranging a new home. I stayed a few extra days with my grandparents, waiting for their call. However, the promised days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. Every attempt to contact my parents was met with unanswered calls and empty promises. I grew frustrated and desperate for answers. I asked my grandparents if they knew anything, but they were as clueless as I was. Seeking help, I filed a missing persons report, but my grandparents dismissed it as mere drama, grounding me for my efforts. Feeling abandoned and betrayed, I pleaded with my grandparents to provide me with an education. They enrolled me in a local public school, but adjusting to the new environment took time. Despite the challenges, I focused on my studies, determined to escape my grandparents' farm and find my parents. The lack of concern from those around me intensified my resolve. Everything changed when I overheard a conversation between my grandmother and my mother on the phone. The hushed tones in the kitchen revealed the truth. My mother was alive. My hope was rekindled. But the mystery of my parents' disappearance only deepened, leaving me with more questions than ever before. We were discussing my progress in school and various aspects of my life, and hearing her voice stirred up a whirlwind of emotions within me. I couldn't contain my feelings, and before I could stop myself, I called out to her. The moment my voice reached the other end, silence fell. Frantically, I screamed and cried into the phone, hoping that if I shook it hard enough, her voice would echo through the receiver. Grandma emerged from the kitchen, her face a mix of concern and frustration, instructing me to go to my room. I unleashed my anger on her, demanding to know why she had hidden my mother from me and why she refused to divulge any information. Despite my pleas, Grandma remained steadfast in her silence, leaving me to accept the painful reality that my parents had essentially abandoned me. Shortly after that heartbreaking phone call, my grandparents sent me to live with a distant aunt, a 5-hour drive away from their farm. I often wondered why my parents had chosen to send me away, but I never received a satisfactory answer. My aunt, my mother's cousin, turned out to be a compassionate and understanding soul. She embraced me with open arms, and when I questioned her about my parents, she admitted she didn't have any answers. Her sincerity was palpable, and I chose to believe her. From the moment I moved in with my aunt at the age of 13, she became my rock. Whenever I struggled with my emotions, she was there to guide me, offering solace and understanding. She even encouraged me to seek therapy, a decision that initially left me hesitant but eventually proved immensely beneficial. My aunt validated my feelings, something my grandparents had never done, and provided the support I desperately needed. By the time I finished high school, my aunt had become the most significant person in my life, filling the void left by my absent parents. She supported me through my journey to becoming a veterinary doctor, following in her footsteps. At 21, I approached her with adoption papers, wanting her to be my legal parent. With her wholehearted agreement, I finally found the stability and love I had craved for so long. Having completed my degree, I now work as an intern in a hospital, striving to gain valuable experience. My career path has led me to move into a new apartment, away from the familiarity of my aunt's home. Despite the physical distance, I still visit her whenever I can. 2 days ago, on my day off, I was relaxing at home when the doorbell rang. Anticipating a delivery, I opened the door only to find my estranged family standing there, my mom, dad, and youngest brother. They appeared both unfamiliar and yet hauntingly recognizable. Stunned into silence, I couldn't find the words to express my emotions. They handed me an envelope containing a letter from my grandparents. According to the letter, I had allegedly run away from their home, refusing to maintain contact, causing them immense emotional distress. They demanded I pay for my brother's education, leveraging my newfound status as a doctor, threatening legal action if I refused. The situation made no sense to me. How could I be blamed for running away when I had been sent away by my grandparents? Why should I be financially responsible for my brother's education when I had no say in the matter? The demands felt unjust, leaving me bewildered and conflicted about how to respond. Why should I care about people who abandoned me for 16 years? With a head full of unanswered questions, I staunchly refused to help them, insisting they leave my premises. When they persisted, I called the cops. They claimed to be my parents, but I stood my ground, stating that legally, I was my aunt's daughter and provided her name. The authorities contacted her, and she confirmed my status, resulting in my family receiving a warning about trespassing and harassment. Since then, I've been bombarded with hurtful messages on social media from accounts owned by my family, labeling me as heartless. I confided in my aunt about everything, and although she understood my actions, she questioned whether I did the right thing. In the midst of this turmoil, my parents showed up at my workplace, causing a scene. Hospital security intervened, calling the police and escorting them off the premises. I couldn't fathom why my family, absent for so long, suddenly wanted to be a part of my life. The emotional toll weighed heavily on me. My therapist suggested talking to them, but I resisted. Eventually, I agreed to meet them in the presence of my aunt. Their explanation was disheartening. They sent me to my grandparents due to financial struggles, thinking it would be easier with one less mouth to feed. When circumstances improved, they couldn't afford to bring me back. Now, with their savings depleted, they wanted me to support them and pay for my brother's needs. They admitted fabricating the threat of legal action, hoping to guilt me into compliance. Each word shattered my heart, but I stood firm. I reminded them of my legal detachment and threatened legal action if they ever bothered me again at home or work. Despite their pleas for forgiveness, I walked away, my heart hardened against them. My therapist suggested I might be struggling to empathize, but the truth was, I felt nothing for them. If I could, I'd erase them from my memory without a second thought. Since my last update, my family has ceased reaching out to me. On the other hand, I have completed my internship, and I am considering another residency program before I sit for the NAVLE. I hold on to hope that my future will be all right. Sometimes I won't deny it. I wish I had a better relationship with my parents. Nevertheless, I am content with having my aunt as my sole parent. She proves to be a far superior mother than the other one I know. They abandoned you, lied to you, and left you with your grandparents. You owe them nothing. You are only giving them what they gave you. They'd abandoned you. I don't understand why they thought you wouldn't do the same. My sister-in-law, a 26-year-old woman, and I, a 29-year-old woman, have always had a complicated relationship. I thought she had matured enough to leave me alone, but apparently she couldn't resist causing drama. Our issues started when I began dating my husband. We met while he was helping her move. We struck up a conversation at a local bar and have been together ever since. Despite our happiness, my sister-in-law never liked me. She once told me her brother never gets serious with anyone, so I shouldn't get my hopes up. I mentally prepared for heartbreak, even though I really liked her brother. However, 6 years later, we are still going strong, and he is undoubtedly my favorite person in the world. The rest of his family, including my mother-in-law, father-in-law, and every other family member I've met have been nothing but nice to me. So it baffles me why my sister-in-law seems to hate me so much. 2 years ago, during our wedding, she created a huge fuss. I didn't want her as my bridesmaid due to her consistent cold and condescending behavior towards me. However, she threw a tantrum and tried to emotionally manipulate my husband against me. To avoid more drama, I made her a bridesmaid. Yet she showed up in a white floral dress, angering everyone. My in-laws forced her to change, threatening to exclude her from family events if she didn't comply. She apologized afterward, and I thought she had moved past her immature behavior. Clearly, I was wrong. Things took a turn when I found out I was pregnant with my first child. I was thrilled and couldn't wait to share the news. While everyone else was excited, my sister-in-law's behavior was different. She didn't seem happy for us and consistently managed to make the moment about herself. During a family event, we announced our pregnancy, and she quickly diverted the conversation to her own experiences as a single mother, emphasizing how difficult it was for her to go through pregnancy alone and suggesting that I was lucky. As my due date approached, my sister-in-law offered to host a baby shower for me. Initially, I was grateful and excited about the celebration with my family and friends. However, my excitement turned to suspicion when she insisted on hosting the event at a venue 12,000 miles away from where we lived. She claimed it was a surprise, set up at a luxurious venue owned by her friend, and we wouldn't have to pay for anything. Despite her explanation, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss. When I shared my concerns with my husband, he assured me that his sister was simply trying to do something special for us and that I might be overthinking it. He even rescheduled vital meetings so we could attend the supposed baby shower. We flew there with my parents, as my in-laws couldn't attend due to being out of the country. Upon arriving at the location, a lavish resort, I immediately sensed something was wrong. The decorations were pink and blue, but there were unfamiliar faces present. To my shock, there was another pregnant couple, and the woman was wearing the same white dress given to me by my sister-in-law. It became apparent that my sister-in-law had tricked us into attending her friend's baby shower, making me feel humiliated and overshadowed. Feeling utterly embarrassed and upset, I left the party in tears once I understood the situation. My husband confronted his sister, leading to her making excuses and attempting to deflect blame. He informed his parents, who were equally shocked and angry. In response to her behavior, they decided to cut her off financially. They had been supporting her financially for years, but after her actions, they withdrew their financial aid and decided she should fend for herself. They even warned her not to show up until she learned to act responsibly. Although my sister-in-law blames me for her misfortune, I maintain that I didn't ask my in-laws to take any action. This was entirely her own doing. While she tries to manipulate me, portraying herself as a single mom, I can't help but believe she deserves the consequences of her actions. Despite her attempts to guilt-trip me, I stand firm in my belief that she brought this upon herself. My sister-in-law is by no means destitute. She won't be left penniless with her son due to this situation. She just needs to adjust her lifestyle and figure out how to manage her boutique independently. Moreover, if my in-laws genuinely believed their grandchild was in jeopardy, they would step in. I'm confident they won't hold a grudge for long. Although they might not fund her boutique, they'll likely assist her with general expenses once she acknowledges her error and apologizes to me, rather than attacking me for her perceived misfortunes. My husband firmly stands by my side, assuring me that I never have to forgive my sister-in-law or engage with her again. He apologized for not intervening earlier and taking stronger measures to keep her away from me. My kind mother-in-law is planning a genuine baby shower for me, promising a delightful celebration where I can focus on the joy of our upcoming child, forgetting about my sister-in-law's antics. However, my sister-in-law crashed my baby shower despite being uninvited. On the day of the event, everything seemed perfect. My mother-in-law had beautifully decorated her backyard, and delicious food and drinks were served. We were happily chatting with our friends and family, opening gifts people had generously brought for us. But when my sister-in-law arrived, having found out about the party through social media, she exploded into a furious tirade. She created a scene, shouting that her parents didn't financially support her, but had no issue throwing a lavish party for me, someone she deemed unworthy of such attention. At that point, my mother-in-law had had enough. She promptly escorted my sister-in-law out of the garden, apologizing to the guests for the disturbance. After the event, my in-laws apologized to me multiple times, suggesting I obtain a restraining order against my sister-in-law. While I hesitate to take such drastic measures, we have decided to keep all news about the baby off social media to prevent her from stalking us. The whole situation is insane, and it baffles me how jealous and immature my sister-in-law can be. She managed to ruin not just one but two baby showers with her antics. I must add that my in-laws initially weren't supportive during her pregnancy because she was having a child out of wedlock, which clashed with their traditional beliefs. They did come around after the baby was born, but it appears my sister-in-law still harbors resentment. I haven't heard from her since the baby shower, and my in-laws have expressed their intention to cut her off permanently due to her embarrassing behavior in front of so many people. Frankly, I've reached a point where I don't care anymore. I just want this ordeal to be over so I can focus on myself and my baby. It's astonishing how entitled and childish she can be, sabotaging such a beautiful event. She disrespected not only me but also her friend, showcasing her true colors as a deeply flawed and immature individual. I don't intend to waste another thought on her.